Good evening, everyone. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. I know. Don't be mad. Don't be mad. I just had a whole lot of things going on. I did some other things with my other group. And we are back. We are back to our monthly session. But this month we are celebrating, or I want to say necessarily celebrating, but we want to talk about mental health awareness. We're going to bring some great guests on tonight because we understand that mental health is something we need to be really looking at. So many people are suffering from it. And I want to make sure that we offer you the opportunity to hear more about it, how you can get assistance, and whatever you need to know, the best ability we'll better give you some information that we can give you. Um, just want to give you a few statistics before I bring my first guest on. Did you know, according to the CDC, that more than 1 in 5 US adults live with a mental illness? Did you know that? I didn't know that. I think there are things that we handle on a daily basis that we don't really consider mental health, and they really are. And I think that's what's important. If you'll give me just a minute, I'm going to try to share this, make this public so I can get this to some other people. I want to make sure people have access to this. And I'm going to share it with one of our guests because I know she's going to be on in just a minute. Um, Hold on just a minute. Okay. All right. So, our first guest tonight is a wonderful woman that I don't remember how long ago it's been. Actually, it's been, let's see, my daughter is 22. So, I'm thinking she was 14 or 15 when I first met her. And we were doing some community events. She was in the community too. We're doing a community event with some young girls, trying to help them get where they needed to be. But she is a two-time author. Um, she has written two books. The first book, I didn't write the name of it down. I'm sorry, Pam, I didn't write it down, but I know the first book is about um, maintaining your celibacy before marriage so that you can also build your self-worth in the process. I do know that. Okay, good. I know I got that part. And then the second book, ooh, don't tell me the name of it, Pam. It has to do with like uncomfortable obedience or something along that line. Hold up, let me just bring her on. Let me bring her on the screen because I need to you know what? I wrote it and I was gonna write it in a section and I took it out and didn't go back and put it in. I know, and I remembered it. I said I got that book, so I know what that was about. That book is that book is a fabulous book where she talks about. First of all, let me talk about how she is a breast cancer champion. How about that? Not a survivor, she a champion. How about that? She has survived breast cancer, going through breast cancer in the middle of the pandemic, y'all. That's already a feat in itself. But through the pandemic, where we didn't know what was going on, and the whole situation with the hospitals were different, and she also dealt with the death of her brother in the process. But these things, even though she was going through these things, these are things that God used to bring her closer to Him and give her a whole nother calling on her life is really what
Yeah.
happened. That's really what happened. So that's her books. So y'all need to get her books. And I'm while Pam is talking, I'm gonna be putting them books in the chat so that y'all know what to go get. So y'all know what to go get. And so then she is also a licensed therapist in her own private practice. Now let me tell you about how I met her. Now you wouldn't think I met her, but I did in another capacity. She was she was my private trainer for a while. Then I had some things happen with my husband, and I wasn't able to get back in there. But what I remember about she is so patient. She is so patient. She is so kind, and she she managed me very well. I just couldn't give her what I needed to give her at the time because something else was going on. But so she teaches stretch and myofascial release classes. Did I say that right, Pam?
Myofascial.
Myofascial. Okay. And she also has two wonderful nieces that she loves spending time with, and she loves cooking. So I want to welcome to the stage tonight. This is Pamela Hampstead. Y'all give her a big hand. Give her a big hand.
Hey, thank you, B.
Hey, you're welcome. I had another guest. She was supposed to come on, but she's not here yet. But when she gets here, we will jump her right in. But I want to make sure that go ahead and get into the conversation because I know there's a lot to say about this next topic. Hold on a minute, Pam. I'm trying to get this to you because I want to make sure it's on your page
Okay,
so
all
that
right.
you can share it with your audience as well.
And while you're doing that, I just wanted to do a slight correction. I have two nieces from my sister and two nieces from my brother. So my
Okay.
oldest, youngest niece were from my sister, and then my two middle nieces are from my brother, and then I have a bonus niece. So five total.
Okay. Well, and okay. You know what? I had only met the two, so
Right.
but
Yeah, I
I'm
understand.
excited. I'm excited. They are fabulous young ladies. I
They
have
are.
had the pleasure of working with one of them for sure. She's a wonderful graduate of the A&T, North Carolina A&T University. That is correct, correct?
Yes. And that was one of the things that we did, B. You taught us about how to look for scholarship money, grants, and funding, and all the things. And so that was a blessing.
Well, I'm glad she's doing really well. She's doing really well. So, okay, well, we're going to jump right into this conversation tonight. What we wanted to talk about, because mental health does matter. Let me go ahead and put the slide up so y'all can see. Mental health does matter. That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about today. And so, to jump right into the conversation, I wanted to talk about how can you share the experience, or what inspired you to go into the career of mental health?
So it's I have to take you around the 277 or the 485. It's a round the way kind of
All
situation,
right.
B. I had always been curious about the brain and how it functions, and I started community college right out of high school, and then got sidetracked by life and money, and doing the things that young people do. And it wasn't until I was late in my 40s when a professor friend asked me where I got my degree from. And that was always a question that I struggled with. And so when I finally got around to answering the question, he said, "Well, what's stopping you from finishing?" And I said, "I guess it's just me." And he said, "Well, why don't you look into that?" And I did. And so I graduated with my undergrad at the age of 50 with my degree in psychology and human services. And then I kept going and did my master's. In fact, I was battling breast cancer in the middle of a pandemic and finishing my grad school classes. The only B that I got was because I had surgery and was struggling with the timing of it all and getting my assignments in. And so I had to give myself grace because you know, I, I wanted that straight A status.
Hmm.
So it was really the deeper I went in school and learned about the brain, and I went to a Christian college. So there were assignments that connected the mental to the spiritual. And that was very intriguing for me because there's such a stigma in the church with mental health matters, in the Black family with mental health matters. And so we always, we always have that one relative where just don't bother them, don't say anything, just leave them alone, and they won't bother you. But what if they had the medication that would help them to think clearly, or what if they were able to go to therapy and get the assistance that they needed? And so that just fueled my fire. And then going through my journey of breast cancer in the midst of a pandemic and recognizing I don't even know how to cry. because I never saw my mother cry. And so 12-year-old wisdom, I thought my mom is strong. I want to be like my mom. My mom doesn't cry, so I won't cry. In fact, I used to say crying is for punks. And I remember when I went through and got multiple diagnoses and all of the things just started piling up, my nurse practitioner at the end of the week, she said, "You've had a rough week, haven't you?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Well, would you like to talk to somebody?" Absolutely. And I remember that Monday, I was able to see someone virtually, and her name was Debbie, and she had on glasses and she was fiddling with her paperwork. And she said, "So, wow, you've got a lot going on. How are you dealing with that emotionally?" And I said, without even thinking, "I don't have time for that." And she pulled her glasses down. She said, "Excuse me?" She said, "We are in the midst of a pandemic. You are not working. You have plenty of time." And I said, "Well, I don't even know what that looks like. How, what do I do?" And that was the introduction into living out loud and really experiencing it and teaching it and telling it simultaneously.
Mhm. Oh, I was like, "Am I mute?" Yeah, you know that was so much in that, Pam. I had so many questions that came out of that. That one question. Hey Patrice, thank you so much for joining us. Drop your name in the chat so we can say hello to you in case I can't see you. Um, you talked about the stigma in the African American community. You talked about the stigma in the church. You talked
Yeah.
about how what you grew up with, the behaviors for what you grew up with, and how you moved those along yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
that's 4 different areas. We hadn't even got into the interview yet, and I already got questions. So I already got. I was like, okay, let's break down what you talked about. Hey, Janet Downs, thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk about that stigma in the African American community and the church. Let's talk about those two first. So
Yeah.
so that people may not know what that is. What does that mean? The stigma in the community. What does that mean?
So in the I say black. So I in the black household, it was you don't talk outside of the house. You don't tell my business. And that encompasses everything, all of the kerfuffles and issues and situations and circumstances that may occur. Don't let my mom hear it out in the streets, right? And so with that comes the house parties, the barbecues where folks get together and drink a lot and act
Mm-hmm.
out. And that's not something that we ever discussed. I remember my grandmother dating a substance abuser, and I asked her, why do you let him live with you? And her answer was, "I don't want to be alone."
Oh
And there's
wow.
so much in that, right? So much in that.
Mm-hmm.
And but we never as a family discussed the disruption of this person who would drink excessively and then show his entire behind. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
household. We have
Mm-hmm.
I feel comfortable saying that there are probably just a few people on the face of the earth that are normal. I believe
Correct.
that
I agree with
everyone
that.
has
I agree with that
some sort
wholeheartedly.
of neurodivergence, so we're all on some sort of spectrum
Mm-hmm.
where we think differently. And there are so many tools out there that help to accompany us on this journey of thinking differently. But because there's so much shame associated with needing help, with saying, "I need help," we don't venture out and ask for it. And so then if we tie it to the church, then it's you get to the church building and maybe you get enough energy to say, I'm struggling, I'm hurting, I need a little help. And somebody says, "Well, then you need to pray harder. If you need help,
Yeah.
you are not praying like you need to. Jesus is all
Mm-hmm.
you need." And I am here to
Mm-hmm.
say that there is power in prayer. In fact, for a baptized Christian, a believer in Christ, we have the power that resurrected Jesus from the dead, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And not but, and
And.
We have all been gifted with various abilities. So Matthew 25:14 through 30 tells us the parable of the talents. You can liken that unto money. You can liken that unto literal talents. In verses 14 and 15, it says that each servant was given according to their own ability. That means
Yeah.
when God was making me and knitting me in my mother's womb, according to Psalm 139, verses 13 and 14, he said, I'm giving you these abilities. I'm going to give you the ability to be a photographer. I'm going to give you the ability to write. I'm going to give you the ability to speak in front of people. I'm going to give you the ability to teach. I'm going to give you the gift of encouragement, right? So all of those things that God gave me at the end of my life on Judgment Day, he's going to ask me, what did you do with all of those gifts that I gave you? And what I will
That's
not
right.
do is be the person who said, I buried it because I feared you, right? I have
Right.
choices. Now, along with those gifts that God has given us, we have teachers, we have doctors, we have police officers, we have firefighters, and we have mental health experts.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people who struggle with the concept of seeing a therapist, if you break your leg, you're going to pray and go to the hospital to get that leg put in a cast. So if your brain is not functioning properly, you get to pray and see someone who can help you, give you tools that will help you to live a fuller life in spite of whatever is going on with your brain.
You know what, Pam? I love how you are making the two coexist. I love that
Yes.
because, I think what I'm excited about is I'm hearing you speaking from a biblical sense
Mm-hmm.
and coupling it with the natural, putting the spiritual piece first and bringing the natural in with it. Because so
Mm-hmm.
many people feel like, oh, we can't talk about that in Jesus. We can't do that. We can't
Yeah.
do that together. And
Yeah.
that's important. That is important because
Absolutely.
I have a lady on a network that I'm part of. She talks about Jesus in therapy. It's fine to have Jesus in therapy, and it's okay to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
many people have made us feel like it's not okay.
Right.
And I think, and the thing about it, I don't have to know how many people are doing both. Because if you're
Exactly.
doing both, you're going to get what you need to get out of it.
That's right.
You're going to get what you need to get out of it. Okay. Well, I'm gonna jump to another question. Just you had so much in there. Let's see. We talked about. Wait a minute. I want to make sure I didn't miss any in my first four. You talked about your whole house. You talked about your household stuff. You talked.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we talked about all of those. Okay. From your perspective, why is it crucial for individuals to seek help from mental health professionals rather than trying to manage it on their own? Because we always trying to do stuff on our own. I'll make it work. I'll figure it out. I'll do that. Why is it important
Right.
that we seek mental health assistance?
So there's a saying, ignorance is bliss. And I would venture to say that ignorance is not bliss, ignorance is pain. There are some
Mm,
things that we may not even know, some very basic things that a mental health advocate or expert could pair with what you're already doing to help you see even more results. Like just what I shared about that spiritual piece and gave some scripture. I was talking to someone today who experienced something very traumatic, who did not have space for therapy. And when I asked them how they were taking care of themselves, the answer was, I'm very religious. Bet, I got you. Let me give you
mm,
some
mm.
scripture, right? Okay, hey, you just gave me permission.
It's a whole lot in there. It's a whole lot in that right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, the highs and lows of Elijah. Elijah had just come off of a major high and a major win. And Jezebel threatened his life and he ran. And then he had suicidal ideations. And he said, Lord, take my life now.
Hmm.
And what did the Lord do? He sent him company, an angel,
Mhm.
who gave him bread and water and told him to rest. Those are some key tools that we don't even use the way we should. Good nutrition can impact how you feel mentally and physically, and we don't even take that thing seriously. Rest can
Mhm.
impact how you feel mentally and spiritually. If you're not getting enough rest, it affects your hunger hormones. So your body may be telling you that you're hungry when you actually need some sleep.
Mhm.
You may be dehydrated, and that's why you're so cranky. And so there are some very simple tools, but there are also some mental health tools that an advocate can provide that will help a person create normalcy in their life with living with whatever, from schizophrenia to bipolar 1 or 2 to ADHD, all of them. There's a way to find some normalcy with acceptance and with usage of good tools.
You brought up something really, because you have so much great information anyway. But you
Thank
brought
you.
up good nutrition, how it
Hmm.
affects you mentally. Can you talk about
Yes,
that a little bit?
absolutely. That's one of my passions. And so, where do I start? The gastrointestinal tract, the GI tract, it consists of a lot of body parts. It goes from the mouth, the esophagus, all this to the stomach, the large and small intestines, all of the digestion organs down to the anus. And it is referred to as the second brain because when your brain is not feeling right, it shuts down your appetite. Have you ever noticed when you were really stressed about something or nervous about something or anxious about something, your appetite wasn't
Oh
present?
yeah. Oh yeah.
And so there are in the
Mhm.
gastrointestinal tract, there are microbiome that consist of good bacteria and bad bacteria. When everything is on track, you have a healthy amount of both the good and the bad, and they work together. You need a little bad, you need a little good to keep that balance. When we eat a diet full of fried foods, processed foods, sugary foods, fast foods, and using the word food is real loose because it's not food.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
flies won't eat it, if flies won't get on it, what are we eating, right? Um,
Right.
Chick-fil-A, my youngest niece's favorite place to eat on Wednesday night before Bible class, has 55 ingredients in a sandwich. 55 in a chicken sandwich. Now, what do you think those things are doing in your body?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
our bodies were made to process food, not toxins, not plastics, not uh, dyes, and things of that nature. And so, what happens is that when we eat that stuff, it causes constipation, it cuts down on the regularity. And I didn't realize how common that was until after I had my hysterectomy, and I was not as regular as I was accustomed. I would have a bowel movement 2 to 3 times a day, and I was probably 2, maybe 3 weeks out from my hysterectomy, then it was like one bowel movement a day. And so I called the nurse, and I was like, hey, I need to talk to the doctor. And this is what's going on. She said, oh, she said, you'll be fine. It'll come together. And I said, oh, okay. Okay. And so she thought that she hung up the phone. And for whatever reason, I continued to listen. And I heard her talk about my complaint and how extra I was being because I wasn't having 2 to 3 bowel movements, and how she wished she was having 2 to 3 bowel movements in a week, B,
Oh my
in a
God.
week. And so because I had this complaint and was only having one a week, one a day instead of 2 to 3, I'm being extra. So
Mhm.
we have accepted not even being regular because of the food that we're eating. But we should be having as many meals a day. You should have that many bowel movements, technically,
Mhm.
at
Mhm.
least
Mhm.
2 per day. And what do you think all that stuff is doing in your body if you're not eliminating
Yeah,
it?
it's shutting you down. It is shutting you
Absolutely.
down.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And also, these foods, they impact our mental health. So there are studies that show the dyes that are in the foods that children eat, the candy, the stuff that they eat impacts their mental health, makes them extremely active. And what do? We feed them sugary cereals and we send them to school and they're told to sit still and be quiet.
Mhm.
How you do that?
Mhm.
And then we have ultra processed foods, which are high in all of the sugars and the inflammatory agents that wreak havoc on our bodies, but they're nice and convenient. Things like French fries, granola bars, things that make your life easier, right? But in actuality, they make your life more difficult. And so the struggle
Yeah.
is, do you bite the bullet and meal prep and put in the extra time to have whole foods or do and have good health, or do you buy the foods that will help you to have a shorter day and not as stressful, and you've got kids and spouses and all the things and ministry and school and all the stuff and you don't have time to eat, so you buy the things that help to make your day easier, and then you pay later with medical bills, with prescriptions because of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, diabetes. And so it's the foods that give us the ability to fight disease or welcome it.
Yeah.
And I could
Like,
go on, but yeah, I know.
well, because every time you say something, it triggers something. So when you talked about the foods that slow you down because it triggers what's happening in your brain, and
Hmm.
then things you would have done you wouldn't do, and then depending upon what kinds of foods you're eating, those things can take you down a wrong path because they have the high factor and the low factor. They can deal with the mood swings and things like that.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
I was thinking about the children, and that is the first thing. Oh, I need them to sit down. And then what is the first thing we do? We take them to the doctor and put them on some meds.
Right. Right. Because we keep feeding them food that's jacking their blood sugar levels up.
Yeah, and then it alters how they think. It alters how they maneuver,
Mhm.
and yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
It is. It
That's
really
something.
is.
That's a whole different conversation right there. Wow,
Mhm.
it's a lot. I want to just take a little second right here. I want to thank Miss Shirley Davis. It is good to see you. Haven't seen you in a long time. Thank you so much for joining. And those, the rest of you who I've already welcomed, thank you so much for being here. We are here. This is Confidently Speaking with B Springs. I am here tonight. We're talking about mental health matters. We have Pamela Hampstead from Total Health and Wellness Group joining us.
TriFit,
It's
TriFit Health and Wellness
private.
Group.
Look, it's pretty small on my screen, so
I know.
I'm like, oh, I can't see that, Pam.
It's the
I thought,
three. It's the body, mind, spirit concept.
yeah, body, mind, spirit. So Pam is here. We are talking about mental health, and we've talked about what kind of got her here, and we were actually she brought up so many different things in her introduction question. We've talked about how the stigma in the church, in the African American church, and the African American community, and how in our families how we couldn't talk about things, and we ended up talking about how with it being in the church, how we just want to tell people to pray, and we don't want to give them the opportunity to go do something and Jesus, because
Right.
he set those people in place as well. We talked about that, and we just got through talking about, because in one of those, in the question I asked, what was why would people want to go try to why do we need to see mental health people when we are trying to manage stuff on our own? And Pam was just giving us some great information on how mental health professionals have tools and things that they can help you with, that can help you get to the place you need to get to while you're trying to manage it on your own. And then we got into that food conversation because we talked about that, because so how the foods themselves, because she mentioned about the things that we need good nutrition, we need good health, and how the gastrointestinal system is like the other brain, and it kind of contradicts, it kind of tells the rest of our body what to do based on what we're putting in our bodies. So I think I
Hmm. That was a
summarized
great
it pretty
review.
good
Yes.
what we
Good
talked
job.
about so far. Oh, well, thank you. So, and if you have any questions, please make sure you put them in the chat, um, and so that I can get Pam to answer those questions for you. The next question I have is, what are some of the greatest challenges you notice with people getting help they need? What are the challenges that people have? And we talked about some family things, and what other things have you seen that challenge people from getting the help they need? I can
Getting
think
out
of
of their
one,
own
but I'm
way.
gonna let you answer.
Yeah, getting out
Ooh,
of their own way. I can know the right things to do, but if I don't do them, it doesn't help me.
ooh, that's good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the obvious one would be
Uh,
not even seeking help.
well, yeah, that too. Not saying, and see, that wasn't the two you named weren't even the two I was thinking about.
Which one were you
Because
thinking about?
I was thinking about, because I feel like some people think it's a money thing. It's a money thing sometimes that
Ah,
stop people from going. And
hmm.
but I think there are so many, from what I hear myself, I think there are a lot of free resources out there that can really
Hmm.
help people, or even if they're not free, they're on like sliding scales and things like that'll kind of work within the
Right.
budget that you have. And I've
Hmm.
talked to people, and it's like, well, I can't afford to do that, so I'm just go on until I can get it done, or I'm gonna go talk to my pastor. And I'm not saying pastors can't help, but pastors are not mental health. They're not mental health professionals.
They're
They're
not.
counselors in a different
Hmm.
capacity, and I understand that
Hmm.
because I help people too. But I understand I'm not a mental health professional, and
Right.
I
Right.
and you have to be able to recognize when people come to talk to you if it's out of your zone, and refer them to the people
Hello.
they need to talk to.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
You gotta,
man. Yeah.
yeah, because I
Bless.
think people confuse it. People confuse what it is. And
Hmm.
so those are things that I've seen. And then people make up the excuse about time. I got so much to do. I don't really have time. Okay, well, maybe if you made time for that, you could get rid of some of that stuff you're doing. Because
That part. That part. Yeah.
because in some situations people just not saying no. And
Hmm.
they can't say no because there's an underlying reason why they're not saying no.
Right. And if you don't
And if
have
they
good
came to see
boundaries,
you, and if they came to see you,
hmm.
you would help them identify some areas that they need to work
Oh
on.
yeah, because I'm all about exercising that no muscle. Got to do it. Got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, because that's a big thing. Because we're not gonna get we could get into so much with that. But okay, so we talked about getting out of your own way and just really doing it. We
Yeah.
talked about money and just making time for it.
And the money piece. So you have therapists who accept health insurance and
Mhm.
therapists who don't. I do not.
Mhm.
And but I do offer a sliding scale. And
Mhm.
so I am a therapist and I have a therapist.
Mhm.
And because my therapist accepts Blue Cross Blue Shield, I only pay $10 for my sessions with him.
Mhm.
And I think it's important for people to recognize if you've got health insurance and you find a therapist who accepts your health insurance, that's a pretty great opportunity to cut down the cost
Mhm.
because the insurance company is going to cover the bulk of the fee. And so there's psychologytoday.com. It's kind of like match.com,
Mhm.
but only for a therapist. And so you can look for someone who's Christian or secular, someone who handles whatever therapeutic modality you're interested in, or even if you want a specific ethnicity, a specific gender. I mean, you can just put in all the things. If you want somebody who specializes in depression, anxiety, couples, anything, whatever it is, you can put that in there, filter it with your zip code, although now we've got a lot of virtual sessions that happen, but you can put all of those parameters in and find someone who meets your needs.
Well, I thank you for sharing that. I did put that in the chat for anybody that may want to look for that. My pastor said something yesterday, and I think you talked about it a little bit in the intro, but people need to recognize that mental health is a medical condition. It's not just a state of mind. And and
Mhm.
and, and we have grown up. Girl, you crazy. Oh, they crazy. We've grown up having that kind of conversation and
Yeah.
not really recognizing that it is a medical condition.
The brain is an organ,
Yeah, but people don't think about it like that. And
right?
they just don't. And I don't know if I always did either. I probably in the last 5 or 6 years I've thought more about it, especially going through some of the things I've personally had to go through dealing with my husband's illness and things like that, and
Right.
then just going through that whole pandemic thing
Hmm.
and seeing how much more is a big deal. It has come to the top of the surface now, where it
Yeah.
has been hidden for a long time, and the pandemic brought a lot of that out, and it
Hmm.
started surfacing with people that people probably had it all the time, but it just became more prominent once we got through the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, B, and I'm sure that this will answer maybe another question that you have, but there is a concept called adverse childhood experiences or ACEs. And
Yes,
that,
I've heard of that.
yeah. And so what that suggests is that in a household, if a child experiences any kind of emotional, physical, verbal abuse, or sexual abuse, neglect, if there's any mental illness in the home, divorce, domestic violence, incarceration, you get a score for each one of those things. And if
Mhm.
you have a score of 4 or more, and you are not treated for the trauma that you have experienced, your body literally keeps score of those experiences. The cortisol levels elevate and the body doesn't heal. And so, what happens is that later in life, which could be in your teens or your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, your body starts to show symptoms like diabetes, like cancer, like high blood pressure, like obesity. And what happens is that your body says, I know brain said we're not thinking about that thing anymore, but I can't stop thinking about that thing. And since you're not addressing it, we are going to do whatever we can to act
Mhm.
out to get attention.
Mhm.
And literally, studies suggest that even a fetus in its mother's womb can experience some of the trauma that a mother experiences while pregnant.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it adds up and it matters. And
Wow.
in the Black community, obesity, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, that's what we specialize in, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is because of unaddressed trauma.
Yeah. That goes back to what you said. We don't talk about it.
Right.
We're not gonna talk about it. We're just gonna hold it And it
Yeah,
goes on and on and on from generation to generation.
exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
So, looking at my experience, I tested positive for the BRCA1 gene mutation, which
Hmm.
made me predisposed not only to breast cancer, but pancreatic cancer and ovarian cancer, which was why I had to have a double mastectomy and a hysterectomy. But I
Hmm.
have to wonder what trauma maybe my mother experienced while pregnant with me as a single woman in 1967 that passed on to me, what trauma I experienced as a child growing up that I just was told to sweep it off, or I just, didn't equate it to being something big enough to tell someone. And so all of those things matter and turn into gene mutations that result in these things that happen.
And I'm gonna give it another name too. Generational curses.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Mhm.
That's that there's a natural piece and there's a spiritual piece to that.
Yep.
And wow, that's huge.
Mhm.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
Things
Any
that make you go, "Hmm."
yeah, they you don't because you're sharing some things I had never heard, like you talked about the food and how when you don't address it here, it addresses it somewhere else. Like you said, your body acts out. Never would even thought about that.
Mhm.
Just want to say welcome to a couple other people that have joined us. Thanks so much for joining us. Um, what advice would you give someone who is uncertain about whether they need to seek professional help?
My advice would be, so 2 different types. So if this is a Christian, a believer, someone who has spiritual beliefs, I would say that you get to trust God. You get to trust that He is preparing an opportunity for you to heal more efficiently. And if you look back over the way that you've responded to things, chances are you've responded out of trauma.
Hmm.
And healing is just on the other side of your first visit.
Ooh,
It's
wee,
there.
that's good.
That is good. I need to write that down.
That's I was like, oh, that's good.
My book.
Yeah, I'm like, right, that was good right there. Healing is on the other side of your visit. Good gracious.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good right there, Pam. I felt that.
Man. And I mean, really, so there's that question, what do you have to lose
Hmm.
to continue in your current state? How is that serving you?
Mm.
And if you recognize that you've got some deficiencies, what's the best that could happen? Not what's the worst that could happen. What's the best that could happen?
Hmm.
So, for someone who does not have strong spiritual ties, I would encourage them to look over their life and consider what you want to have happen. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing and
Hmm.
expecting a different outcome. So,
Hmm.
you've been doing it this way for X amount of years and
Yeah.
getting the same outcome. Consider doing something different.
Yeah. Yeah. That was good. No, but you also said this. How is your current state serving you?
Hmm. Yeah,
You're in this place, you know you're dealing with stuff, and you'd rather continue to deal with it than to
right.
move to a different place.
Yeah, yeah.
You rather, that's crazy. All
Yeah,
right.
because the dysfunction that you know is safer than what's on the other side. And what's on the other side could be so much better.
Yeah. And I think it's a process. It's not gonna be instantaneous. And I
Right.
think that that is an issue. I don't want to say an issue. I will say because we live in this microwave society where we're looking for things to happen very quickly and move quickly.
Mhm.
I just want to go and talk about it and get done with it. It most likely won't happen like that. It
Right.
may take a couple, multiple, I'm not going to say a couple, it takes multiple sessions because there's so
Mhm.
many layers that have to be pulled back to get to where,
Mhm.
how you got to where you are.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I will say this. I remember when my brother died, and I'm coming up on 3 years, June 11th.
Hmm.
And when he died, I just went into autopilot because I came from women who handled stuff, right? If you
Hmm.
need a situation taken care of, you contact the Hempsteads. We can
Hmm.
schedule it, we can take you to the appointments, we can get the job done. But don't ask us to talk about how we felt or what emotions are resonating in us because we don't have time for that, right? And so I got to the end of the week after my brother died. We had cremated him. We had a Sarah, the celebration of life, and we had another event the next day. I only took one day off that week, B.
That's crazy.
And
I shouldn't
on
say that. But
that's how I'm that's what I knew to do.
uh-huh.
And a coworker, a sister friend, called me and she said, "Hey, what's going on? I'm seeing all these emails from you. Why are you working?" And
Right.
I said, "I
Right.
did. That's all I know to do." She said, "Pam, we have bereavement time. You need to take time off and process what's going on." And just as she said that, like depression for me is usually tied to loss. And I
Mhm.
just noticed everything was dark. It was just dark. That's what it feels like for me. Just a whole cylindrical spiral down into darkness. And
Mhm.
I had a good friend of mine had told me and given me the number for his therapist just based on another conversation. And I knew another therapist, and I texted them both. And I said, whoever responds gets me. And the one that I didn't think would respond responded, and he had an appointment available the next day, which was only God because he sees 30 people a week and is always full.
Mhm.
And our first session, I'm telling him about the stock from which I have come, who
Mhm.
my mother was, who my grandmother was, the strength that they exuded, how I just learned how to cry. And he said, "What if I told you you could live in the land of and?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "You can be strong and you can cry."
Mhm.
B, that is such a simple concept. It seems like common sense, but it was mind blowingly freeing for me that I could
Mhm.
be strong and cry. I don't
Mhm.
have to lose my strength in the midst of my sorrow, that I could miss my brother
Mhm.
and still be productive.
Mhm.
I could live in the land of and. And that was the most beautiful and freeing moment. And that is the power of therapy. And I'd also offer that just because you find someone doesn't necessarily mean that that first try is going to be the right connection. And
Mhm.
just because you don't connect with the first person you reach out to does not mean that you don't need therapy. It just means you get to try again. Try again.
Right. Right. That's good. Permission. You got permission. That was good.
Yep.
That was good. Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna. Looks like Dr. Joe got here. I'm gonna
Oh,
bring Dr. Joe on for a second so we can get her on. Hey, Dr. Joe.
Hello, hello.
Good you made. I'm glad you made it. Let me take this banner off because I need to see it, be able to see your face, Dr. Joe. This is Pam Hampstead, and we've been having a glorious conversation on here. We've been having a glorious conversation. Let me, I gotta find my little banner. I gotta take it off. Hold on, y'all.
it's cute too, B.
Well, thank you, girl. I be trying. Okay, there we go. There we got Dr. Joe on. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are talking about mental health matters, and we have Pamela Hampstead from TriFit Health and Wellness Group on, and we now have our other guest on. Her name is Dr. Josephine Harris, and let me give you a little bit background on Dr. Joe. I call her Dr. Joe. So uh, she is a veteran military spouse and a mental health expert. She is a 17-time #1 Amazon bestselling author and international bestseller. She is a Green Heart University certified trainer and facilitator. She is the founder of Calming Minds LLC, which is a multi-dimensional coaching practice. She has experience in addiction counseling, intervention programming, domestic violence, individual and group psychotherapy. She is internationally licensed psychotherapist, proudly serving the Soul Counseling Center in Seoul, Korea since 2018. So, welcome to the stage, Dr. Joe. Welcome to the stage. So glad to say, look at you with your green on. Look at you with your green on. Well, Dr. Joe, we have been having a great conversation. We have talked about um, the stigma in the African American community. We've talked about the stigma in the church and how it's hard to get people to understand that they can have Jesus and therapy. We've talked about that. But so what I want to know from you, tell me about your experience and how you decided to pursue your career in mental health. Tell me about that.
Well, one of my things of me pursuing my career in mental health is due to a lot of mental health in my family. So that really inspired me to move on into the mental health field, as well as the different challenges amongst people like me, you and me. So we have a lot of stigma in our culture about you're not supposed to get you might not supposed to seek therapy. We have the Bible, but they said, okay, the Bible will handle this and the Bible will handle that. But also God put people in your path so that they can help you along the way. Yeah. So that's really what inspired me to go into the mental health field, to even be into this field, because I love helping people. And when I say I love helping people, I love helping them through the mental health challenges that they go through.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how much? So do you? Are most of your clientele mostly military families, or do you just do lots of different type of people?
Well, the oddest thing is I do have a lot of military families, but I cater to mostly between the ages of 25 and 55.
Okay.
So I specialize in PTSD, anxiety, ADHD, and autism. So I also work with special needs children as well. So I help them to navigate through the challenges they have with they have autism and ADHD.
Okay, that brings a question up. With Pam, when I was on the phone, when she was talking, every time she said something, I had a question. Okay, earlier, Pam and I were talking about the effects of nutrition and how it affects the children and how they're high on sugar and things like that. Do you see any similarity with the children that you deal with, and how, because, autism, we hear a lot about that now. And do you think any of the effects of the nutrition has any effect on how autistic children are managed or anything like that when it comes to, because you said I don't know what spectrum, how do you deal with mental health when you have children that are autistic? So you got to tell me a little bit about that, because I am totally unfamiliar with that. I would love to hear that.
So one of the things with children with autism, we have to be careful of what we ingrate in them, and what foods intakes they have, what sugar levels they have as well. Because I have a nephew he's on the spectrum. So what my niece does is give him a lot of fruit and vegetables and stuff like that, a lot of grains, limited a lot of sugar intakes. limiting a lot of starches, a lot of white bread. So she normally have him on whole grains, limiting a lot of rice and all that. So that could affect the brain cells as well. So we limited certain amount of foods to his diet, but also you have to also get them a therapist, which is specialized in children with autism, which is ABA therapy. So it's applied behavior analyst. So what that is, they teaches them the skills so that they can be it teaches them the skills to communicate with you. Because my nephew, he couldn't talk at all. So it was difficult for him to communicate his needs, his wants. It was difficult even to communicate with him. But as time has passed, he has a therapy which is specialized with children with autism. So now he can talk, he can speak, he can communicate. At first, he can only do nonverbal, which he can point. And so we practice him with on PECs. That means you help hold up cards and he communicate through the cards and what he wants and what his needs are.
Okay. So they have specialized therapy for children who are autistic.
Yes.
And I wasn't aware that there were certain foods that they should and should not be eating that would kind of move them in a different direction. I didn't know that. So you see, y'all learning something. I'm learning something. I tell you, I don't know. That's why I got these experts on here to talk to us, to talk to y'all, so that y'all know too. Because I know last month I did a session with a group of women, and we had a young lady who has 3 autistic children. And so that would be that would be good. She probably knows that, but she has a group of parents that she's starting to work with now. And so they may need some assistance. And so I didn't know that there was special therapists. I mean, I know there are people that work with them, but I didn't think they were therapists in that sense. I thought it was some other type of specialty. So thank you for that, Dr. Joe. I do want to ask you another question. But I asked Pam the question, I'm gonna ask you. So what are some of the greatest challenges you notice with people getting help they need to manage their mental health?
One of the greatest challenges I see is dealing with limited access to and resources. They have they don't know the resources within a community. They don't know, and it's difficult to seek a therapist that look like me and you. Especially if I'm seeking a therapist and I want a therapist that look like me, it's hard for me to seek that therapist because of most of the therapists is not our cultures. And sometimes it's very difficult for other therapists and the client to relate. So that can be a challenge. Another challenge is dealing with they're not informed. They're not informed, like mental health awareness. They're not informed of the different resources out there, the different techniques out there. And it's very important for you to seek the help that you need, because sometimes you can misdiagnose yourself. And we know the internet out there, and we researching on the internet and getting all these diagnoses from the internet.
Yeah. Because give me an example of a misdiagnosis. Either one of you. What's a misdiagnosis? Because I have never even thought about going to the internet to look and find out what's going on with me. Not in that capacity, I guess. We look for everything else, because again, we don't think mental health is a medical condition. We just think it's something else going on.
Menopause has a significant rippling effect over the female body. And so where you may be diagnosed with arthritis, it's actually low estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, which is causing your body to act out in ways so when I had my hysterectomy, they didn't tell me that I needed estrogen and progesterone to be able to sleep well, to not be achy. I was going to the doctor every 2 to 3 days. I sit for 30 minutes, I stand up and I'm bent over like a 90-year-old woman. What's going on? And none of the doctors could tell me. And you know what they would say? Well, if you exercise and lose weight.
Yeah, but you
That part,
already
that
exercising.
part.
And I'm
Yes,
looking at them like I could do far more than what you could do. And you're telling me exercise is the answer?
that's the part. That's
Sir,
the part right there.
ma'am. And it wasn't until I went to a 28-year-old OBGYN who said, you are the perfect candidate for estrogen and progesterone replacement.
Mm.
She said, new studies show, because they told me that I had to lose my uterus because my cancer was estrogen fed. She said, Ms. Pam, new studies have come out since then that show that what they thought was estrogen fed breast cancer is not the case. She said, we should probably ask the doctor who did your mastectomy. And my face just changed. She said, but I get the impression that you want to do this regardless. I said, yeah, but you can go ahead and ask her. And she did approve it. And that first night that I took that progesterone, it was like,
okay.
I wasn't listening to my thoughts anymore, because literally it felt like I was just listening to my thoughts all night.
Yeah. And you know what? They when you go to the doctor, and because I have a client and she's going through the same thing, and I was telling her, and she was saying that she was feeling anxiety, she was feeling this, and she was feeling that. Like, well, you know that you might be premenopausing. She's talking about, well, I don't. Yes, palpitation, heart palpitation. She said she woke up like something was attacking her, like she couldn't hardly breathe. I say, you know, we as women, we really have to research menopause, because there's a lot of signs that go at menopause that you can be misdiagnosed with anxiety, you can be misdiagnosed with other things. But the very ground thing is menopause. And she was going through menopause. I said, you might want to go to OBGYN to see what's going on, because she going to a psychiatrist, but psychiatrist giving her this medicine, but she's still sitting in the side effect.
That's what I was thinking. I said, you said anxiety because, like you said, misdiagnosed. And I'm going to see this person for this, and this is not really what's wrong with me, and I'm still having issues.
Right. It's a side effect.
Side effect of it.
You know what? I know this ain't got nothing to do with menopause, but I was really thinking the other week, I said, I need to get a menopause person on to talk to women, because
I have the right person for you.
Okay. We're going to talk after the show. I said, we need somebody, because I am hearing so many stories from other people about menopause that I'm going to say this. All I heard about menopause was night sweats.
It's more
no, but I'm saying, growing up, you weren't hearing all this stuff. What you was hearing, girl, you just know you're going to have to have your private summer. You're just going to be fanning all the time. And it's so much more than that. And I'm hearing it from different people. Okay, that's a side note. Dr. Joe, I'll talk to you about that. Because I was like, I need somebody on to talk about that.
I have the right person. She's certified in it.
Okay. So then, all right. So we talked about that. I want both of you. Well, I'll start with you, Pam. I want you to share a story or some memorable experience that has some success associated with your practice, your methods, or whatever, and how it impacted a client. You don't have to tell me details, but give me a success story from someone who made a decision. I need to go get therapy, and how they came out on the other side.
So I have a client who was referred to me by my college professor. You talk about pressure. The fact that my professor saw my abilities while I was in school and thought enough about me to refer her client to me, I felt like, whoa, I got to really show up. And this client had multiple layers of trauma, and they were at the point where they were not able to function according to their desires. They were always asking lots of questions to their spouse. You know, if the spouse was saying, we need to go to the store and get groceries. Okay, well, why do we need groceries now? And what's causing you to... had to know all the details with everything, overthinking, overanalyzing, fearful, always checking in if there was any kind of silence. B, are you good? Dr. Joe, are you good? What's going on? Can I get you anything? Never able to relax in their own skin. And we've been working together for about a year now. And our last session, they were telling me how her husband called and said, hey, I've got to make a stop at such and such. And she didn't have any questions. And she said he even paused and was like,
he was waiting.
Right. And she said, okay, I'll see you when you get home. And she was tickled because she knew he was thrown by the fact that she didn't need to have all those answers to the questions that she typically would ask. So I see that as a major win for her.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. I love that. I love it. He was waiting for it. Like, okay.
Yeah. Like, okay. What you got?
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good. That's good. What about you, Dr. Joe?
Well, I have a plethora, but I'm gonna give you one main one.
Okay.
One of my clients were referred for by a friend of the one of the clients that I used to what I was seeing. I used to see. So she referred her friend to me, which her friend was going through a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and her friend had severe anxiety. So she was feeling overwhelmed. She really couldn't function daily. So she was always worrying about what if something happened or what if this happened. But through consistent therapy and through the section that we went through the relationship, through supportive systems that I gave her, she gradually regained all her confidence so that she can be well-rounded, be functional in society, because she was literally getting ready to. Actually, she was getting ready to commit suicide, and her friend had reached out, had gave her my contact information, and she was telling me about what was she lost her job. I think she just had a miscarriage, and she was going through a lot of a really severe depression. She was getting ready to divorce her husband. Her husband wanted to divorce us because her husband didn't understand the mental instability that she was going through, the mental drainage that she was going through, it was really mentally affecting her. So through different sides of treatment, which I did was different sides a therapy, which I taught CBT to her. So I showed her how to really cope with anxiety, how to really cope with her depression. It was to the extreme that she was on medication, but she had really cold stop medication. I was telling her about psychotropic medication. You can't really stop medication like that because it'll have another side effect on you. So I walked her through the process. I got her in tune with another psychiatrist that helps her through the process of medication management as well. So now that she's doing all that, she's doing well. She just got a new job. Her and her husband is close now. So she developed a toolbox just in case something like this happened again, just in case another mental health crisis come up. So I taught her the different techniques. I taught her to have a crisis plan. So that if it comes up like this again, that she know how to handle it and her husband know how to handle it. But now they are on really good terms and she's really doing good. So she had just emailed me and said how good she was, and she got promoted to management. So that was a really good story for me.
That was good. You said something, Dr. Joe. So you said she has to see someone else who deals with the medication part of what she's doing. Oh, see, I didn't realize again, I'm learning a lot just being on here with y'all. So there are there are certain things certain therapists do versus what other people do. You may have to hand off sometimes.
Yes, you might have to give a referral out. See, with me, I don't prescribe medication.
Okay.
I can diagnose you because I'm a psychologist, not a psychiatrist.
Okay.
A psychiatrist prescribe medication.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Well, ladies, it's 10 minutes after 8. This was really good for me. I'm gonna go back and rewatch myself. Because there was so many pieces in here, so many layers to this conversation.
Mhm.
And I appreciate both of you taking the time out to come and join us and talk about that. So, Dr. Joe, if someone wanted to reach out to your services, how can they contact you if they wanted to reach out to you, or so that you may not sure if you have the time, but if you had someone else, and I'm gonna ask you the same thing, Pam. What is your contact information, or where is there a website you want people to go to if they want to look you up?
Yes, ma'am. As you know, I'm over all social media as Dr. Joe Harris. My website is Common Minds. It's www.commonmindsllc.com. So you can reach me like that. You can reach me all over social media as Dr. Josephine Harris or Dr. Joe Harris.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Joe. And
You're welcome.
Pam?
Yes, you can find me on psychologytoday.com with my name. And then if you'd like to schedule a free consultation, you can reach me at 980-281-0603. Again, that's 980-281-0603.
Okay, I was putting that in the chat. Okay. Well, I appreciate y'all so much. I spelled your name wrong. I'm gonna go back and fix that. Left the P out your name. I'm about to fix that, but I'll get it fixed for you. I thank y'all so much, and I'm hoping people will listen to this conversation and they will rethink their situation and realize that what is healing on the other side of that appointment. How about that?
That's right. That's
It's
right.
healing on the other side of the appointment. And I want to thank both of y'all. I appreciate, first of all, let me say I appreciate the work that you both are doing to help others, because it is changing lives, and you're helping break some of those generational curses, and you're making people better so we don't have the same thought patterns that would happen years before, so that we can move
Yeah.
forward and be better, so we can be better for our families, better for our children, better for our other relationships that we're in. So you're helping all around in a way that we wouldn't think you would be helping, and I appreciate you both. And I'll be talking to y'all again. We probably bring
Thank you.
y'all back.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you. It's
Okay.
my pleasure
Thank
for
you
having
so
me.
much. Y'all have a great night. Okay.
All
You too.
right.
Bye bye.